Eating beforehand is probably a bad idea.
Do you want water?
No, it's okay.
Okay.
Now my throat just feels like coated.
It's like, oh yeah. It's okay.
Grease.
It's fine. Grease. Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel today. My name is Carly.
And I'm Kim.
And today we're going to be reviewing the brand new 1 to 4 player game, Defenders of the Wild from Outlandish Games.
So in Defenders of the Wild, you are playing as one of the 4 factions. The machines have kind of come over and taken over the earth, and you're playing together. You're putting your differences aside. You're putting your distress aside. I might not trust the coven, but as the sect, we realize we need to work together.
We gotta work together to get rid of the machines.
To get rid of the machines.
Beckham is eating a screwdriver, so 1 second.
Yeah.
So Defenders of the Wild was a game that was on Kickstarter not too long ago, and it just recently has started kind of fulfilling 2 backers. I know the very first thing when I saw this game was I was like, that's a lot smaller than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be a much bigger box. So yeah, it's kind of like a smaller, kind of more compact game. So for this review, we're going to be sharing everything that we liked and didn't like about this game, but before we jump into that, we're actually going to be giving you a really kind of general overview of how this game plays, and then we'll come back and share our thoughts on Defenders of the Wild. War has come to the wild. In Defenders of the Wild, you and up to 3 other players will be working together to heal the land and outsmart a seemingly impossible enemy, the machines. At the beginning of the game, players will select a faction, either the Order, the Council, the Coven, or the Sect, and gain all corresponding player pieces. The factions that are in play will also determine what bonus actions are in play for that particular game. Players will also have to decide what character they will be playing as and gain the necessary cards that make up that particular character's deck. You will shuffle this deck, then draw 3 for your starting hand. Players will also choose one of their faction home habitat hexes next to the perimeter of the game board as the location for their starting camp, and then randomly assign the first player. Defender of the Wild is played in rounds. Each round has an organized phase and an action phase. In the organized phase, players will secretly choose a defender card from their hand to play before simultaneously flipping over all chosen defender cards to reveal to all other players. After this occurs, players can now begin communicating and strategizing together. Moving on to the action phase, players now can take as many actions as shown on the lower left of their active defender card. These actions include things such as moving, building camps, healing, clearing pollution, or destroying mechs. You must be aware that when you take actions near mechs, you will take damage. You will also take damage when you clear toxic sites. And if you ever take damage that results in exceeding the maximum of 3 damage tokens, another player must randomly choose a defender card from your hand. This defender is killed and placed under the death token corresponding to that defender's habitat. After taking all desired actions, that player will then draw and resolve 1 machine card. Each type of machine card deploys, moves, and manages a specific set of machine components. But the general purpose of the machines is to spread pollution, shoot out hunters, create walls, and factories. When locations become too polluted, they become toxic. Too many toxic locations will make you lose the game, along with too many factories being built. Here are the 3 ways that you can lose this game. The first is if all 5 factory tiles have been built and a factory card orders the machines to build the final factory tile. The next is if all 6 toxic sites have spread across the game board and a factory card orders the machines to spread more toxic sites. And the last is if 2 defenders from the same habitat are killed. If any of these occur, the game ends and all players lose. To win the game, all players must have built all of their camps and also rewild all of the factories the machines have built. If this happens, the game ends. Remove the machine core from the board and place all characters on the center base tile to celebrate your victory together. Alright, so I really hope that overview kind of gives you a general idea of how this game operates and plays, but let's go ahead and start by chatting about everything that we've liked or enjoyed about this game. Kim, do you want to start?
Yeah, the thing that I think sticks out the most for me is how well the theme incorporates into like the mechanics of the game.
Yes, absolutely.
We've played a lot of games this year where like the mechanics are super fun, but like the theme, like, and I like the idea, but they just don't. Yeah. They don't mesh, right? But in this game, the theme definitely.
Sorry, Becca.
He's grabbing
Becca
my toes.
is down by her feet.
The theme and the mechanics definitely, like, it all makes sense together. It comes through really strong, and it makes for, like, this really fun experience. You definitely feel like you're this faction that you're like joining forces with the other factions to try to like rewild the land. That's one of the things like I loved the most, is how well it just came through in everything that you did. Like,
This game, you really actively have to be working with everybody because the machines, they move so fast. It definitely is one that keeps you on your toes.
you have to work together, but then you also have your own thing that you're trying to accomplish. Like,
Yes.
we all have these camps, our individual camps that we are trying to build in our habitats. If I build all my camps before like Carly does, as soon as I'm done building my camps, I exit the game.
Exiting
I'm
the game.
out of the game, and it's like up to Carly to try to finish everything afterwards.
Yes.
So you really do have to try to work together to like,
And kind of be like even a little bit.
build. You don't want one person to just like jump ahead and suddenly be like build their last camp and be like, see ya, because then the last person there to defend for themselves.
Something else that I really liked about the game is that you take on a color and then you choose between two leaders that you want to be playing as. And what makes it kind of interesting is that each leader has kind of like different cards from the other leaders. I liked that variability, and I liked how there really are a lot of different combinations that you can do.
And yeah, especially if you're playing with 2 or 3 or 4, like that changes. I've played 2, 3, and 4 player in this game. And that does change a bit because if you're playing with 2 player, you're not going to have access to all of the power token. These are the graveyards, aren't they? Those are the graveyards.
It's power tokens right here.
Power tokens right here. So like we have this set up for a 2-player game, and so we're only gonna get the bonus action token and the destroy mech / pollution token. But if you play with like all 4, then you'll have access to potentially
to all of
those
the tokens.
powers. So it does like make the game feel different.
I kind of mentioned the box size. I feel like this game has a really good punch for kind of like a smaller box size game, right? And it feels kind of almost like a bigger game in a sense. And I feel like this very much, it could have been a bigger game. But I love that they kind of, I don't know how to describe it. It feels like just a really great weight for like a smaller box game. Like the setup doesn't feel like a lot. The components don't feel like they're overly overly big or anything, but yet the game just has a really good punch despite all that.
Yeah, and like adding to that or along those lines, I really like all the components in the game. The artwork is super fun.
I love how all of the cards, they are different characters.
Yeah.
And so there's different artwork on all of them for the individual characters, and it feels like when you're playing the doctor, like it feels like you're playing that doctor, right? And the artwork is not duplicated on other cards, so it feels like very unique, which I really liked.
Another thing that I liked, the way the engines like work. It's just, it is a little bit confusing, and I'll get into that. But as the engines are moving along the board, there's just something
building the walls as they're moving.
There's just something so like, I don't know, fun and suspenseful, like watching it happen, because it's just like, oh no, it's leaving this trail of walls. And then at other times they're gonna like be spitting out the hunters, so they like shoot out these hunters, and then the hunters are gonna come get you. I just liked the way that the machines worked in this game.
And I like how, everything starts from the center and it does spread out. It's not a game where like all of a sudden this pops up over here, this pops over here. It really does feel like the pollution and the mechs and everything are actually spreading across the board.
Another thing that I really enjoyed in gameplay, you have your defenders that you play. You only get to add cards to your hand, or like as you're playing your defenders, you're going to be decreasing how many you have. And you don't get to draw new cards to your hand until you've built one of your camps.
And then that's when you get to draw more cards. Yes.
And so like it adds this like, I don't know,
hand management. A little bit to it.
And especially like the other thing that it's fun, and in terms of like hand management, is that if you have 2 defenders that are from the same habitat in your hand, I can play Billy, who can give me 4 actions, and then if I want to do a 5th action, I can play a card
to increase that
to
power.
increase that, to give myself a fifth action to do.
But then you lose
but
out
then
on
I
that
lose
card.
that card.
Yes.
But sometimes you really want to be able to get that extra action in before, like, to get rid of that pollution or to rewild something, because the next time it comes around to your turn, maybe it's become toxic. I don't know. So it was just this fun, you said, hand management component to the game.
I think the last thing that I kind of wanted to touch on was I really liked, it felt like there were ways that the game was kind of helping you out a little bit. And I don't know if that's the right term, but kind of what I mean by that is, like, for example, like when you die, or if you get, your all of your damage, so you can only take 3 damage, and if you were, even though you get maxed out, you're still okay. It's like if you happen to take 1 more damage, then just one of your character dice, but you're not, like, out of the game.
Right.
It's not super, super punishing. It felt like, okay, because that is a strategy that you can use, is sometimes you might need to max yourself out to be able to get done what you need to get done, and sometimes it's worth it to sacrifice one of the people from your hand.
You just don't want to sacrifice too many.
You just don't want to sacrifice too many, and so but sometimes it is worth it. There's a kind of like little stuff like that didn't, in my opinion, make the game feel like it was too punishing. Yes, it's a hard game, but it didn't necessarily feel like I was being punished for the actions that I was doing.
I agree with that, especially in terms of, like, if I'm thinking about when there's pollution, like, on a site, you get to remove all the pollution that's on there.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like you just have to remove one pollution at a time. It's when you remove pollution, you just get all of it taken
Or, like,
off.
when you are healing, you can remove all of it at once. And then the other thing that I was thinking about was with the mechs, whether they're hunters or snipers, it doesn't matter how many there are shooting at you. So, like, these are the snipers. If I'm there, they're going to shoot at me if I do an action there. But I only have to roll the dice once.
Yep, you don't have to roll it for every
each one.
single. Yeah. For me, it made the game more enjoyable and wasn't like, oh man, I'm just drowning.
Yeah.
You know?
That wasn't something I thought of previously. But I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. One final thing that I really liked and thought was interesting, and I don't know if I've played a game that does this before. I don't know. Maybe not, but it seems new to me, is the way that movement works. If I am playing this character who likes the water, this is all considered, like, adjacent to each other, because
so you can just move straight through.
And that's, like, considered one. And,
one
like,
action.
thematically, it's because I'm so familiar with the water habitat, it doesn't take extra time to
maneuver through it.
maneuver through it. Yeah, it was adding also to the, like, not too punishing.
Exactly. The game was kind of giving you these, like, little helps.
Like, we know it's hard, but and it's also, like, it works thematically too.
Yeah. We've talked a lot about what we liked about the game. Let's go ahead and jump into maybe little nitpicks that we have, stuff that we didn't like, or stuff that we could potentially see others not liking.
So one of the things that I had mentioned to Carly that was, like, a little fiddly, slightly nitpicky, is that the consistency of things.
That's what I was gonna say.
When you place the 3rd pollution token on a site, it just automatically becomes toxic. Ooh, take them off. Okay, now it's toxic. For everything else, when you have, like, these tokens that you're placing, and I don't know what, it's just consistency. So when I get hurt, I place 3, but
you're still not dead.
Yeah, I'm not dead. It's not until you or getting a 4th one. So, like, if I were to get a 4th one, then I lose one of my characters. With the toxic sites, you don't completely lose until, so they're all out, everything is toxic, but you lose if you had to put another one.
Exactly.
Yes. And then the same thing with the factories. Like, they're all out, but you don't lose until you would have to
put another one.
So, like, for whatever reason, I wish, for consistency purposes, I wish that it had been, okay, there's 3 pollution things, and then when you had to take the 4th one, then it becomes toxic. So that was, like, my first little, like, I guess, nitpick.
The very first thing that kind of caught me, or the first thing that I kind of noticed was, I wish, and there definitely, like, are images and pictures in the rulebook. I wish there would have been a little bit more, because there were times where I was reading through and it was explaining something, And I'm just a very visual person.
Yeah.
And so as I was reading through it, I just kept having to flip and reflip and go back to what they were actually talking about. I just wish there would have been more images because it would have helped me jump into this a little bit quicker. The setup, like it's talking about setup and there's like no pictures. Yeah. It's like, no, I need visual representation and A, B, C, D, and I can just quickly go through.
For the defender special abilities, it has them all written here, and most of the time they're pretty self-explanatory and you can understand what they mean, but there were some here and there where it felt like I wanted just to be a little bit more clear. And I talked about the engines and the building the walls and like how like fun that was. But it was also a little bit like, what was the word you used earlier?
Fiddly?
Yes, fiddly.
Yeah.
Especially when it came to the points where sorry, I say like a lot. I'm like trying to be aware of it. Especially when it came to the points where your engine is running into a wall. And then when that happens, then it gets to reset. And then the card tells you that the engine will reset from the highest numbered factory. So say this had been built over here, and then it gets to deploy from here or something. But as you start building more walls and factories, the engine starts running into things, or sometimes they run into each other, and then
there's a lot of hedge cases. Yeah. There's a lot of stuff where you'll be playing and you'll encounter something. You're like, well, what do we do now? And I feel like the rulebook didn't give me the clear enough answers to find the exact this is what you do in this scenario. So we would just kind of have to make our best guess, because that does happen a lot with the machines.
Yes. Because the engines are gonna be running into walls or into each other or into the factories, and then you're gonna have to reset them. And
then it's like, okay, well then what order? Because sometimes they'll be doing something at the exact same time, and it's just a little fiddly. It is,
and that was just a little confusing. And sometimes I felt like we were cheating then because we're like, well, I can't. My brain is not figuring out how this is supposed to go, so let's just go ahead and put it right here.
Put it right there, yeah. All right, so what would you rate this game? Let's jump into ratings.
I am coming in at a 9.
A 9? Oh my goodness, I love it.
Yep, I am. I enjoy a good cooperative game. I had a really fun time playing this with my family. I was initially afraid that maybe it would seem a little samey game to game. But because of the challenge and because of the variability and being able to play the different hands and you have 4 factions, but it actually feels like there's 8 factions side that you get to pick from, and then being able to add the difficulty level. I feel like I want to keep playing this game. I want to keep trying to master it and see what can we do to accomplish it. For that reason, just the theme and the fun and the togetherness, we were able to have a really fun time. So it has a 9 for me for that reason.
Yeah. I really want to give this game an 8, but I think the fiddle, I feel like I'm in between a 7.5 and an 8 because I think it is a touch too fiddly for me personally to make it to that 8 level. If it would have been a little bit more streamlined, had stuff a little bit more kind of intuitive and clear, this would be an easy 8 for me. I think I am going to come closer to a 7.5. Having said that though, I really, really did enjoy this game, and I really just love the card play and everything that you're personally doing, right? You're trying to manage your cards and you want to make sure that you are staying on top of building your buildings and being able to build your buildings so that you can continue to have that card revenue, but you don't want to push it too far because then you're out of the game and you're leaving other people to work the mechs on them for themselves, and you're out by that point. So I love kind of that push and pull that you're kind of trying to balance everything. So there's a lot about this game that I really like. For me, the only thing that is bringing it down from an 8 is just it's a little bit too fiddly for me, and I wish the rulebook would have been a little bit more intuitive. It kind of was a little bit of a barrier to entry in my opinion. So that's the only thing that's pulling it down. But if you can push through those things, I really do think this is a great game.
The way that I was thinking of the game is if you're in Root and you have the different, you're playing as the different factions in Root, and then it's and you're battling each other in Root. So I kind of think of it, like, it's not related to Root at all. Like, this is not a sequel to Root. But in my mind, I have this story that I've now told myself, like, oh, these robots are coming to, like, Root, and now we have to decide to work together instead of fighting each other. Because it does talk about how, like,
and honestly,
we're suspicious of each other.
In a weird way, it kind of feels like a Root light.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yes.
It kind of feels like that. I'm not going to go as far as say, like, this is a lighter version of Root, because it's not, but
it's not. Yeah.
It gives me similar vibes. All right, so those were our thoughts and ratings for Defenders of the Wild. I wanted to give a huge shout out to Outlandish Games. Oh, it's okay. I wanted to give a huge shout out to Outlandish Games for sending us this copy to review for you today. And if you enjoyed this video and you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, it means so much if you could do that. Really helps support us in everything that we're doing over here. But until next time, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you later. If I get even one comment saying, oh, it's too early to decorate for Halloween, I'm gonna freaking lose it.
If people can decorate for, like, Christmas, you know, like, super in advance, then it's wildly accepted.
That's what I say.
Yeah.
It is never, like, listen to me, it is never too early to decorate for Halloween.
I mean, Summerween? What was that?
Summerween?
Is that what it was called?
I think so.
Summerween.
No, I mean, that's a real thing. It could be Halloween needs to be just a year-round thing.
Just live in your witch.
I will. I live in my witch era.
Yeah.